Hello, everyone. I'm very lucky to have one more young water expert with us this time. She's a hydrologist, also doing a PhD. So let's welcome her. We have Rashmi Kulranjan with us. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Rashmi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Subodh, for the kind introduction that you gave. Like you mentioned, I'm Rashmi. I am a hydrologist by training. I've been in this field for the past 5.5 years. And currently, I am doing my PhD, which is looking at stakeholders and how do they sort of help in modeling the lake system in Bangalore. And I'm also working part-time in an organization called Well Labs, which is a research and innovation center. And I work with the urban water team. And the team basically looks at different water-related issues in the urban as well as the rural setups. And how do you find solutions based out of research, and how do you use those solutions to implement on ground and figure out how to solve water-related issues. So that's broadly the kind of work that I do.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Um, yeah, so my journey, I would start with how I got into the field for people who may want to look at a career in hydrology. So I started off with my degree in environmental sciences, and then I found a bit of interest in the field of at looking at water resources and resource management. That's how I started looking at hydrology as a subject during my masters and stuff. And during my thesis, I started working with Dr. Veena Srinivasan, who's a renowned hydrologist in the country. And I found that there are certain topics that I was finding real interest in. For example, how do you manage water as a resource, its access, availability, the quantity that's available, and things like that. So I worked on several projects during my thesis and as a research associate under Dr. Veena Srinivasan. There I was working on things like how do you look at different water challenges in river basins, as well as water challenges are in urban spaces like the city of Bangalore, or in rural spaces, for example, in an agriculture zone in Tamil Nadu, and how do you manage those situations? So I've worked on several projects, and that's how I've started building my career in this field. And I have realized that there are a lot of different ways to get into the field. There have been several times people come up and ask, how do you get into this field? And I tell, like, now that I have a certain years of experience and I've worked with a number of people, I've realized that there are different ways to get into the field. For example, I got in from a from an environmental sciences background. There are people who come from a geography background, from an urban planning background, or an engineering background. And there are very different perspectives that they bring into the work when they come from such backgrounds. And it is, even though it is said that you should have a degree in the particular field that you're working in, I feel that now when I'm in the field, I know that you can come from various different backgrounds and still bring in a lot of insights and perspectives that you may not get if you're only focused on one particular, when you come only from one particular background. So I think that has been one of the learnings that I figured out working in this field for this long.
So is this an exciting field for you, or is it something that is not so exciting but interesting? Where's the line in this for you?
I think for me personally, it's a very exciting field. So the moment I realized, like I said, I started off with an environmental sciences background and I was looking at resource management. I realized during my degree days that okay, there is this very important resource that is water. We need, all of us need it, even if you are working with it, not working with it, you need it in your daily lives, and you can't go ahead in your life, day-to-day life, without having this resource. So, and there are so many issues around it, even though it's such an important resource and which needs to be solved. So I realized that when you're in this field, you have so many different, like the excitement comes from the fact that you can come up with solutions to solve something that's not just important for you, but the people around you as well. And with every project that we do, when you come up with some solution and you see an on-ground implementation happening, I think that's where the excitement sort of comes in from. For example, recently we have started working on a project it's an ongoing project, but it's in a town called Chintamani, and we're looking at how do you rejuvenate a lake. So the town is very groundwater dependent, and we are trying to look at source sustainability in the town, because it's a growing town, and eventually it will become like a big city like Bangalore, and will start facing water issues. So when we looked at that issue, we were looking at how do you solve it by sustaining the source for long term. So we're looking at rejuvenating a lake which could eventually become a drinking water source. So solutions like that, I think when it starts getting implemented is where this excitement sort of comes in from.
Okay. Okay, you're focused a lot on the professional side, and clearly it's what India needs. There's no question about it. And we'll come to your future, but tell us a little bit about your college days and master's days, high school days, because people want to know, before she did this, how did she even get into environmental sciences?
So I think my journey was I would say I was a very confused kid since school. I didn't know what to select. Like everyone, I think a lot of kids are confused after that 10th and 12th of what subjects do you select. I was sort of sure of what I didn't want to do, but I was not very sure of what do I start working on. So when I did my bachelor's, I took a three major course. Like when I was doing it, we had an option of choosing three majors. So I took environmental science, botany, and chemistry. At that point, because in my personal life, I really like gardening and stuff. That's like one of my really good hobbies that I enjoy. So that's why I was like, okay, I want to get into a field. Maybe I would be interested in botany. But when I started doing the course, I realized I was a little more inclined towards environmental sciences. So from there, I was in contact with. I did a few internships with different organizations. One thing that I realized during that time is when you start doing internships, you can start figuring out things that you are interested in, not interested in, because it's a short-term experience, and you can get a sort of a idea of what the company or that sector is sort of offering. So that sort of helped me understand, okay, environmental sciences is what I want to get into. So that's when I took up environmental
And
sciences as
what
my.
did your family say to all this? They understood it and they accepted it. How, people want to know these things.
I think it was a bit confusing for them as well, because it was not a course that people would normally choose. Because like usually it would be a medicine or engineering, which is the standard courses people would select. And when I said I want to do environmental sciences, my parents were confused as to why I would want to do it. And when I said I want to go, so I was based out of Bangalore, and I wanted to go to Delhi and do my master's there. And they were very concerned, does this field have a future? Would you get a good job, and what is it? So I did my research. I spoke to my professors at that time, asked them what is the scope. And my professors at that time were really good. They sort of directed me as to put me in contact with my seniors who have already been through this phase of life, and like they're already established in their careers. So that sort of gave them confidence to send me into this field. And then after masters, because I started doing an internship, I eventually started working in the same company. I think they sort of got an idea of, okay, she knows what she's doing, and she's sort of trying to figure out a way. They're still confused. My family's still confused, but they're supportive in the way that they keep asking me, okay, what is it exactly that you do? And then when my articles or blogs and things like that come up, I show it to them, and then they're like, okay, now they understand. This is what I'm doing.
And also, of course, you just didn't go to Delhi, you went to TERI in Delhi, I take it,
Yeah.
And everybody knows TERI is a prestigious place. You can't just get in there without anything. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what is your own ambition for yourself? I mean, I know you talked in general terms, but do you have any? I mean, you're doing a PhD, right? So PhD means you have some idea of what you want to be. What is it that you are thinking?
I think as a personal side, I would want to build my career or sort of my life in a way that I can. It's a very solution oriented thing that I want to get into, where the work that I do or the sort of professional side that I build up is actually like I can implement it on ground when I see things, solutions, things like I said, the lake rejuvenation thing or any work like that which can get implemented on ground and make a difference for me or the people around me. I think that is something that is sort of my ambition, long-term ambition.
Okay.
And water is the field that I have chosen. There are different fields that other people would choose for their.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, and I may be wrong completely, there's a difference between groundwater and hydrology. Am I right? Or are they two intimately connected?
I think they're connected.
They're connected.
Groundwater is part of, yeah, hydrology is
Groundwater is
the
part.
general subject.
It
Yeah.
is part. So, though I think you are more into rivers and lakes and the
Yeah.
flow of rivers and watershed management. I didn't hear much about groundwater from you or from any of the other people who talked to me about hydrology. I'm curious. Do you also know about these things, or is it part of the field? How does it go?
So hydrology is a general field and which consists of both surface and groundwater hydrology. Yeah, I think me and the other colleagues that you worked on have specifically been working mostly on surface water resources, but we cannot ignore groundwater at all because both of them are interconnected. If you are working on surface water, there will be some interaction from the groundwater. If you're working on groundwater, it will be interacting with surface water. And even though we say surface water, but all of our work is has some aspect of groundwater. It's just that groundwater is much more difficult to study and to understand. There are very few experts in the country also who have actually been working on groundwater in real depth. Our expertise doesn't lie there. I think that's the reason we don't speak much about it, but we realize that how important it is and how connected it is to our work, and we can't like isolate groundwater completely and look at it separate as a separate entity.
Yeah.
So it is very much connected, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think because of our expertise not lying in that area is the reason we haven't been speaking much about it.
Yeah. Okay, fine. All right. Now, I want to ask you a question that you may not want to answer. When I think it was in 1971, I was just an MA student at that time. Dr. K.L. Rao was the irrigation minister, and he proposed this Bharat Mala scheme of rivers, which we are still talking about today. Like we must interconnect our rivers so that we can have more even flow. Now, is that
Yeah.
even an ideal today, or you think trying to control rivers is a bad idea?
In my personal opinion, I think it's a bad idea. I wouldn't, I mean, as from my experience, I would say I wouldn't suggest that is a good way to go. One of the reasons is what we are doing is instead of, we are looking at it from a supply side point of view. We are looking at the issue from a supply side point of view. And we're like, if there is not enough water here, we'll get it from somewhere else.
Right,
But we are not accounting for that. The issue, we are just pushing the issue somewhere else instead of
right.
addressing it at the point.
Yeah,
So I don't think that is a good way to approach it. And also controlling it, it's a natural system. It is going to change. When you are going to engineer certain things, this is beyond us. Like we have seen with mega rivers in the country where we have tried to use engineering solutions to control the flow of the river, but eventually it takes its own path and it causes destruction and it causes a lot of livelihood issues also, which people don't take into account. We are looking at short term solutions, but the longer term solutions are usually ignored, which I think is a problematic issue, even though a lot of people may not agree to this because they're like, okay, we still need to bring in water because how do we feed the people in the city, how do we get them the resources. For that, I think one of the projects that we have been working on is looking at circularity within the city. How do you use the resources at the source itself? For
mm,
example, in the city of Bangalore, we are trying to see how do you find solutions within the city instead of trying to, if your Kaveri water is not available, instead of moving to another river and bringing in water, what can you do in the city? Like solutions like rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge, or even using wastewater, which is a extremely good source and reliable source. How do
mm,
you use that instead of getting newer and newer water sources and spending loads of money and ignoring the negative effects that it has on the other places.
Okay, so would you say that the kind of work that you are proposing is still in its initial stages, or is it developed?
I think it's in its initial stages. So one of the projects we were looking at was doing the water balance for the city of Bangalore, where we were trying to quantify the different components of water, and what we identified is how wastewater is a big resource. So there are a lot of solutions to like the recent water crisis that happened in Bangalore, and solutions like rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge, all of them were suggested, which is being suggested for a long time. Even wastewater reuse has been suggested for a long time, but we wanted to quantify all of these solutions and see which one is actually good. And we found that wastewater is available throughout the year, which makes it
Yeah,
a reliable source.
has to be.
Instead of
Yeah,
something like a rainwater, because it's seasonal, you will have
yeah.
it for a few months in the year, and you can only store a certain amount.
Mhm.
Whereas wastewater, you have it throughout the year, and you can keep treating it and immediately be sending it to places that need to
Mhm.
use it. So I think that quantification has been done. We are still in the process of how do you transport the water, which industries can use it for what purpose, what is the quality levels and stuff. I think that is still in the progress, and even to the economics of it, how what would be the cost compared to getting fresh water and stuff like that. I think that's the part we're still working on right now.
Yeah, it's a key issue because, the scary stories of Chennai and Bengaluru, these are our prosperous cities growing fast economically, and yet there's not enough water. And you think, well, all those smart people, they couldn't figure it out. I mean, what's happening? Okay, we are supposed to be
Okay.
not dealing with such issues in such cities, but anyway, we are dealing with it. So I think it's very
Yeah.
important that there's a group of people who are going to deal with it. How's your PhD? I mean, that's a different story. It's at Ashoka University. Tell us how it is for you over there. So are you
So
just
my
remote,
PhD,
or how are you working? Is it remote, or are you going there? Do you work
it's
from?
actually in this place called ATREE. It's in ATREE, Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment. It's also based out of Bangalore. So because it's a part-time thing, I go a few days to that office, my ATREE office for my PhD work, and few days to my Well Labs office for the work there. And that's mostly focused on looking at the lake system in Bangalore. And because what we say in Bangalore is, unlike many other cities, the lakes are sort of connected to each other. It's an interconnected system forming a cascade chain. Basically, one lake fills up, the excess water flows into the next one, and so on. And so a lot of studies have been done, but they look at individual lakes. How is this particular lake functioning? What is the water quality? What I'm trying to do is look at it as a system. If any lake in that system is affected, how is the entire chain going to get affected?
Yeah.
And when you come up with solutions, look at it at a system level instead of looking at it at a single lake. And some of it includes talking, one of the components is trying to understand who are the different stakeholders who around lakes. One important being the citizen lake groups, which are very active in the city. How are they functioning? What are the issues that they are facing? And can science be used to sort of figure out solutions for the problems that they are facing? So they know what's happening on ground, and can science sort of help figure that part out? So I think that's
It's a
the sort
complex
of,
process. I mean, water is always complex, right? We think water
yeah,
is the simplest thing, it's been around forever, but actually delivering it is very complex, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's a very, like we say, it's affected by so many factors, both natural and man-made factors. And when we are looking at any solutions for water, often we look at it from one perspective. And we say that people are working, all the different departments or the different organizations are working in silos. And it's really, really important that people start working together. All the different departments, all the different organizations come together and start looking at it holistically. And that's when I think you can start solving these issues.
okay. Anything else you want to tell us? your bachelor's days in Bangalore or something like that. I mean, yeah, I want to shift it a little bit to your personal side because people always want to know who you are, not what you do only.
I think so. Personally, I'm a Bangalorean at heart, and one of the things that interest me is traveling in Bangalore, also outside Bangalore, but within the city, exploring because the city has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
For anybody, even a new person, even a person who's lived here for years, I think the city has a lot to offer, which people don't realize. People are like, "What is there in Bangalore other than the weather?" There's a lot of cultural significance. There's a lot of historical stuff, a lot of big parks and stuff. And I think finding out more about that is one of my interests. The other thing being, like I mentioned, gardening is one of my passions. So,
So tell us a bit about it. Tell us a bit about it.
so like I was saying, when I was in my bachelor's days, why I got into the field was because I had a love for gardening. I wanted to look at different options of how do you have urban farms. The concept of urban farms really interested me. So I started uh, looking at options of how do you grow food within your own house. How do you grow it either in the ground, or if it's a compact space, how do you put it in smaller containers and stuff. And I've been experimenting for a few years with different vegetables and spices and stuff. Lately, I think I've started shifting to flowers. One of my friends, she works she's looking at urban biodiversity. From where I found out that there's a lot of biodiversity stuff that you could build up in your own garden. So I've started experimenting with different flowers which attract different butterflies and different bees and stuff, how their pollination works. I think those are some of the interests I have other than looking at water issues and water problems.
It's very interesting. I am going to talk to you about it offline. I don't want to
Sure,
take up the time in the recording, but I think it's very
definitely.
interesting. Okay, anything else any tips you have for young people?
I think the only tip I have is be open to exploring stuff. You don't have to be stuck on figuring. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to try out all different fields and then figuring out what is your interest. You don't have to know it all from the beginning itself. So it's okay to be a bit confused.
I can tell you that. I'm always confused because it's only out of confusion that you get creativity. When you sort your confusion, that's when you become creative. If you know what you are doing, you are dull and boring. I think.
Yes, definitely. I
Confusion,
agree with.
confusion means there are options. It means you
Yes,
are creative, you are thinking. Otherwise, you know, you can do the same thing for the next 40 years. There'll be no
yes,
confusion. Right?
yes,
So
definitely.
I agree with you that confusion is fine. Anything else you want to add here?
So I think that's the word.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Rashmi. It is a
Yes,
pleasure to listen to you. You are like, as I say, the point of these Vidpeds is to empower young people, to listen to young people. And you are a face of young India, young modern India. That's really what I wanted to feature in these Vidpeds, that they are good. You know, the seniors don't know that they are good. And I know they're good. I want to give them an opportunity. And you've taken us through a journey and a story that brings it out so clearly. So in a way, you have validated my hunches for creating this channel. Okay,
thank you so much for having me.
here I have, I can tell you about very technical things, right? But still have my feet on the ground. Still
Mm.
have my feet on the ground, but I know I understand all the technical stuff. I have the feet on the ground and I'm going to do something. So great. Thank you, Rashmi. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Let's end it here. Let's say bye to the
Yeah.
viewers. I'll be back with
Mm.
another young person or a young scholar or an expert soon. Bye till then. Bye, everybody.